Well, welcome everybody. I wanted to thank everyone for coming to our December 2019 Community Listen and Learn session. So back in October, just a couple months ago, we conducted a very similar Listen and Learn section on a broad variety of topics. And one of the feedback items that we received was to take a deeper dive into specific topics. And so we have mapped out the rest of the school year, with this being the first one, but then having a community listen and learn session every month moving forward. And we're going to alternate between focused topics and then broad ones like we did in October. And so this one, as you can see, is about PBIS and behavior management. I hope all of you saw, as you came in, you got also a little gift here. So these are our hot off the presses, amazing magazine. So these haven't even hit mailboxes yet. And so it's one, a thank you for being here before they get into mailboxes. But two, there is an article on PBIS within this magazine that you can take with you. And I know Principal Mixdorf, it's about Edwards Elementary. She is also going to talk some about it later tonight. I also wanted to let you all know that we are video recording this session just like we did in October. So not only is the information that we're going to talk about PBIS for you all here today, but it is for our broader community. So for parents and community members who can't be here today, this will be posted on our YouTube channel and shared all the ways that YouTube channels are. So I'm going to go quickly through our agenda and then we will get moving. So I'm doing the welcome. We're going to talk about why PBS. Get back dialed on here, one moment. We are back. Why PBS? Superintendent Risner is going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what PBIS is. We're going to talk about how that looks at Edwards Elementary at the middle school. And then towards the end, we're actually going to break up into 4 subgroups where we're going to talk about some specific things, and we'll get into that once we get to that point of the evening as well. And that's going to be a great way to ask questions about those specific topic areas. So I will now turn it over to Superintendent Risner.
Thank you all for coming, and I see we have 2 board members here, so I'd just like to thank them for coming. So we have Director Franzen and Director Shields-Cook. So thank you so much for both of you coming, and also staff, thank you for coming. And I know you probably have questions as well, and so hopefully tonight will be able to provide a little bit deeper dive into PBIS, and you'll have an opportunity through the breakout sessions that we have to dig deeper into certain topic areas as well. So what we had planned tonight, like I said, this is a deeper dive. So we're going to go through and describe in more depth PBIS and what it really is about and what it means. And PBIS is a program used all over the nation, and one that's very well research-based, and Jessica will share more of that. But kind of what led us to PBIS. When I came into the district and looked for our MTSS model, which is your multi-tiered system of support that districts have that kind of drive what we teach and what happens when kids don't get it the first time and they go into a different level. And so we didn't have a MTSS model. So with the MTSS model, you have kind of 3 main areas. You have your social emotional learning curriculum. You have your universal curriculum, which would be the academic pieces that are research-based and are the same building to building, and teachers have the tools they need to be able to teach students. And then you have your behavior management system, and that's our tier 1. And so what happens when kids fall out of that tier 1 and go to tier 2, tier 3, then those are some of our specialized programs. So this year we've been working really hard to implement that first tier. So what is universal for all students? What behavior expectations from building to building and as a district? And so that's what led us to PBIS was knowing we have a lot of kids that are falling into Tier 2 that really never had an opportunity to gain skills in Tier 1. So I'm going to let Jessica go into a little more detail.
And just to introduce myself really quickly, because I think I'm a new face to many of you. My name is Jessica Sharp. I am the district's behavior specialist, and I'm supporting then PBIS for the district. So if you ever have any questions, I can do my best to answer those, so please feel free to reach out to me. When we think about what exactly PBIS is, I wanted to give you guys like the formal, what does PBIS org say? And so they have here that positive behavior interventions and supports is an evidence-based 3-tiered framework for improving and integrating all data, systems, and practices that affect students' outcomes every day. PBIS is not a curriculum that we purchase. It's not going to come in a binder. It's not something that we learn in one day in one professional development. It's a commitment, and it's a commitment that addresses student behavior through systems change. And when it's implemented well, then our students achieve and improve not only academically, but socially. So what does that really mean then? Okay. PBIS is a system approach that really enhances the capacity for our schools to educate all children. Okay? Not just your children or my children, but everybody's children. It is a process that focuses on improving the school's ability to teach and support those behaviors. Again, it's a framework. It's not a program. It's not curriculum. And rather than it being like a prescribed program, it just really provides systems for then schools to design and implement and evaluate their current practices. I'm done. So when we think about how we implement PBIS in the process, it's a 3 to 5 year implementation plan, a 3 to 5 year program. We are just in our first year of that. Our building admins team, our building admins, our classroom teachers, our staff in our buildings really worked hard this summer and at the beginning of the year to get the systems and the components of PBIS implemented. So when our kids came back this fall, things were ready to go. Some school districts will spend a year just on the implementation piece, but our staff worked very, very hard this summer to get that in place and ready to go, so we were ready to roll when our kids came. The professional development piece, we have internal coaches at all of our buildings, and those internal coaches are working to support the buildings in effective professional development around PBIS. Those internal coaches themselves are going to coaches camps that are happening 3 times this year through AEA. And then we're also meeting on a monthly basis to really enhance our learning on what Tier 1 looks like and what it sounds like in the buildings, but then to extend our learning to support those Tier 2 and Tier 3 levels. The expectations, when the schools worked this summer, they determined that our district would have the expectations of safe, responsible, and thoughtful. Those are across district-wide. All buildings, elementary, middle school, and high, have those 3 terms, and then our buildings were able to define the expectations that go under those bullets that best meet their building needs. PBIS is implemented by all faculty and all staff. Okay, it's not just happening in the classroom, it's not just happening in the hallways, but it is happening everywhere and by everyone. And then it really reflects the building needs and the student needs. And then, we go back one more, thank you. The teaching part of PBIS, I think, is the most important and the most fun. We want to make sure that the appropriate behavior is taught. It's not it's not good enough to just put it in a syllabus or just to post it on the wall. We want to be very intentional about teaching those expectations and not assume that our kids know that. And we do that even at home when we've got little ones coming up. I've got a 2-year-old, and reminding her, you have to ask to be done with dinner. Before you get off of the table, you say, can I be excused? Those are things that we have to teach them. We can assume that we may know that at our house because other kids do that, but we take the time and we teach them to do that. And so we're doing that exact same thing in our schools. And then positive behavior is publicly acknowledged. We're going to celebrate those times when our kids are meeting expectations, okay? It may be a high five, it may be a fist pump, it may be a dance party in the hallway, but we are going to let everybody know that, hey, we're achieving, we're amazing. And then that last one, that inappropriate behavior, is retaught. So oftentimes we will think, well, with PBIS, there aren't consequences or there's no punishments. There are, and there's a time and a place for that for specific students if that changes their behavior, but PBIS really just focuses on that reteaching, okay? And I always go back to my house, and when the kids put the dishes in I say kids, and even sometimes we as adults and husbands and wives do this, but we'll put the dishes in the sink, and the dishwasher's right there. We have to reteach them, hey, this bowl can go in the dishwasher, okay? We don't necessarily punish them at that point, but we reteach the expectation. We reteach, hey, you take your shoes off at the door. Heck, sometimes we reteach you just shut the door, So those are things that we reteach. We're reteaching them at home, and we're reteaching them at school. And then tiered supports, and Superintendent Risner talked a little bit about this. So PBIS, just like our academic systems, has tiered supports. That bottom, that green level, that tier 1 is universal. All of our babies are getting it, okay? All of our kids are getting it. All of our teachers are implementing it. All settings, it's preventative, it's proactive. If we go to tier 2, that's more of a targeted instruction. Okay, some students get that. Not everybody gets it, but some students get that. And then the tip of the triangle is that tier 3, and that's very intense, direct, intense interventions. The big piece about PBIS, though, is if you're getting tier 3 supports, you're also getting tier 2 supports, and you're also getting tier 1 supports. So we're layering them on top of each other. It's not just you get this, and then this, and then this. You're getting all of it together. And you guys have the article in your magazines about PBIS, and I pulled this from it because I just felt like it speaks to us. It says, positive behavior interventions and supports provide a common language and framework on expectations so that everyone within the school is clear. It's not a cure-all for every student. It's not a cure-all for every student, but it focuses on the positive and catching kids doing the right thing by acknowledging and reinforcing their behavior through feedback. So we're not fixing everybody with PBIS, but we are catching kids doing the right thing, and we're acknowledging them for that.
Great, thanks,
Edward?
Jessica. So now we're going to move to Principal Mixdorf, and she's going to talk about what that looks like specifically at Edwards Elementary. And then after that, we're going to move to what that looks like at the middle school as well.
When Superintendent Risner invited us to do this, we got pretty excited with the implementation at Edwards. And enough here that I've got a brave student volunteer to come and talk about the experience. She's a 5th grader here at Edwards, and so she's been with us for quite a while and has kind of felt the changes of the implementation of this. I also have Miss Lickhart. She's a 2nd grade teacher at Edwards, and she is a piece of our PBIS team and has been a big leader in in a much larger team that's made this implementation happen for us. So I'm not going to say too much. I'm going to let them talk about some of the moves and some of the changes that we've had. But I would say that, as Jessica was saying earlier, this really is a framework. It's not a fix-all for everything that happens. When you get 400 plus children together, we have lots of things to teach and ways to get together and work as a system for each other. And we feel like that focus on the positive has made a big difference in our enjoyment in our work environment, and we know it has for kids too. So I don't know, Eric, I saw the slides that you were working on earlier. Yeah, so I'm going to turn it over here to Ms. Lacarte. She's going to talk about our expectations and some of our teaching and training here at the beginning of the year.
So over the course of the spring and summer, the PBIS team met and worked through expectations we had for every activity area. So you'll see examples of the posters up there. And these are all, like, you'll see the classroom poster posted in every single classroom. And regardless of what classroom you go to or why you're there, these are the expectations for that classroom. So there's some common ground for kids. They know exactly what is expected everywhere that they may end up. And it just helps keep everything super clean and concise. The hallway posters are posted in the hallway. So, you know, one, you can be looking and saying, oh, I noticed that you're walking in the hallway. Like, thanks for being safe. You know, and then at that point I would give a ticket. I bought stock in pocketed cardigans, and I have tickets all over the place. So, you know, it helps us as teachers to, you know, oh, hey, I do notice this. Like, I see this student doing this now, or I see this whole class following the hallway expectations. And being able to do that, it also helps remind students. You might say, hey, remember in the hallway, we make sure that we're walking. That helps keep us safe. And so things like that, playground, and then we also taught them. So the students came in at the beginning of the year, and we went through rotations where we went to every different space. We went through exactly what's expected at every space. We had different scenarios of, is this an example of being safe or is that being unsafe? And they, you know, were able to obviously tell the difference. And then we did that again. We focused. We had a week on safe. We had a week on thoughtful. We had a week on responsible. And we went through each area and talked about what that looks like in every different scenario. So we spent the first 3 weeks of the school year really going through the expectations and the training, so that at no point in time was there was no muddy water as to what exactly was expected, I guess.
As Ms. Lacarte was talking, not only is that important for our students in the philosophy and the research behind PBIS, for the students to have those clear expectations, but our acknowledgement system, as Jody said, is tickets, and some of this is for us as adults to help ourselves remember we're focused on the positive. This is language that we use at Edwards so that we're reinforcing the expectations that we agreed upon as a staff that we think are important for our students to learn and to know, and to be able to have a high academic expectation and a good social emotional experience at Edwards. And so our agreement and commitment to this language then helps us as the adults in the system reinforce through common language what those expectations are. The ticket system that we're using for positive acknowledgments, because again, this is about capturing kids doing the things well, is really for us. We set goals for ourselves. I know I put a certain number of tickets in my pocket every day, and if I have any left at the end of the day, I didn't meet my goal that day. I didn't reinforce as many times as I wanted to. And we reinforce not only individuals, but we also reinforce classrooms, and I'm going to let Caitlin talk to us a little bit about our acknowledgement system. And we may use the word reward, but we've worked really hard as a staff that when we say reward, we aren't talking about plastic trinkets. We are talking about privileges, responsibilities, ways to feel a sense of belonging to something bigger than yourself in the ways that we celebrate the positives that are happening here at Edwards. So I'm going to turn it over here to Caitlin to talk about our acknowledgement system.
Okay, so I love the way that we get to figure out what we want and how teachers acknowledge us for what we're doing right and not what we're doing wrong, but doing right. And still acknowledging every kid in the building and trying to help them and working as hard as they can to make our schools a better place and a place we want to be every day. And the ticket system. So I really like the ticket system because you can, instead of like a teacher saying, you did a great job in like media or something, instead they could give you a ticket and said like, you did a great job, you earned this, and you basically deserve this. And if in my class, if your name gets drawn, you get to choose a privilege. Like there's a positive note home or a joke or a compliment. And those are all really nice things because then your teacher doesn't have to like think and give you something. Instead, they can just say like, oh, you look really nice today, or have you ever heard about the cow who did blah, blah, blah. And instead of the little toys, we can like be able to think of that and remember that instead of having them just lying all around our room because there's nowhere to put them. So at the beginning of the year, we got we got to choose what we wanted for list of choices, and we basically just we told our teacher a bunch of good ideas that we thought would work, and he narrowed it down to a couple, and then he put them, like, he made them on pieces of paper around our room so that we could, if our ticket gets drawn, then we could remember what they are and not have to, like, ask him about it and then wait a long time to think of what you're going to get. Instead, you could just look on the wall and then tell him, oh, I want this. And it's way easier than actually having to remember all of them and just having teachers, like, having your teacher have to tell you over and over and over, hey, there's this one and this one and this one and this one. So, yeah.
So as Caitlin was talking through the positive acknowledgments, and in that example, they've got a list. So if somebody gets drawn from the ticket, from the cup for the week, then the whole class might get to hear a joke. If she gets drawn, she can pick a class joke, and so then the whole class kind of gets that celebration. I don't know, do you want to talk through the celebration piece of this? I don't need to.
You mean as far as like the weekly, monthly? Okay. So classes can also earn class-wide tickets. So say they had a great day in music, Ms. Stalder might say, hey, overall we worked so hard as a class, like I'm going to put a class ticket in your, we've got the charts up in the lunchroom, so they're seen, and that's what the doormat refers to. That is in those books. There's a picture of a doormat. Who knew a doormat could be so exciting, but it really is every single week. So there's a race to see like who's going to win the doormat for the week, and it's the traveling doormat of whoever's class got the most class tickets. So you're working together as a whole class to try to get this doormat that you get to step on every single day as you walk in and walk out of the classroom. And so it's a K1 gets 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5. So we have 3 traveling doormats throughout the building. So that's kind of the classroom celebration. And then we also have a weekly Edwards, Excellence in Edwards Award that's given out, and that's just for a student that has demonstrated that week the safe, thoughtful, and responsible. And they get a certificate and their picture taken, and they get their name called on Friday afternoon over the intercom. And so that has been really cool to see. I think my favorite part is the fact that, like, as soon as it's said, like, all the kids in your class are like, oh, go! So, you know, like, whoever it was, like, it's not a competitive, like, it's a very, it's super inclusive, and the kids get super excited for each other, and that has been awesome to see. And then we also have one monthly celebration called the Cyclone Celebration, where we invite one student from our class is nominated for that, and then they can come in with their parents and the teachers serve them breakfast. So, and that happens just once a month on day one, because that's when the gym is free.
So hopefully we've kind of given a picture of our implementation, or our beginning implementation of Tier 1 of this framework. The PBIS team meets monthly, and so we go over how students are feeling, feedback from staff, how do we make this better. Okay. And ways that we can improve. Maybe I'll let you do that here quickly. And then we have an external coach, as Jessica was talking about, the internal coach in-house. We have an external coach that also does walkthroughs, and they go and just a random sampling, I guess, if you will, and talking with students and staff and asking questions that are part of the PBIS to give us some data and feedback on how students and staff are relating and integrating and accepting the work that's behind this research. And PBIS team will go over that data on Monday. I think we'll be pretty excited about that. And we'll use that data to drive when we're ready to really look in and dig into more of our Tier 2 supports using this framework. We still have some good work to do moving forward, but we've been pretty excited about that Tier 1 implementation. And I think Jody's going to talk about one last thing as we've made some tweaks to our school-wide celebration.
So as you can tell, we've had multiple layers of different ways that we can acknowledge the students. The quickest and one that happens the most is the tickets, and these tickets all go into a classroom jar. When that classroom jar is full, the class can have some kind of celebration, whether that's an extra recess or a pajama party or things like that. But then they also dump into a school-wide jar. And when that school-wide jar is full, we've done popcorn parties a couple times, but our big goal, and we finally pulled it off, was these passion groups where students can pick something that they're interested in doing, and then for that half an hour, once we earn that school-wide celebration, they get to go do their passion group. And some of that looked like there was a coffee shop, so they served hot chocolate and they had soft music playing and the kids could read for half an hour. We had some different STEM activities going on that students could pick. We had coloring and Play-Doh and a dance party. And were you in lip syncing? Yeah, so like a lip syncing battle type of thing. And so that has been really fun, and it went over, so it was so neat to see like all the second and third graders mixed together and going, to something that interests them. And I see my kids now, as the jar's getting more and more full, like, oh my gosh, we're almost there. Like, we're gonna get to go to the passion group again. So, and we've got it's all the extra teachers. I mean, there are a lot of passion groups going on during that 30-minute span, but it's been really cool to see. I think overall the feel of the building has been different, would you say? Like, I know as a staff member, like the building just feels like such a better place to be this year. So it's been pretty cool.
I think it does speak to culture, not only for kids, but for adults. And we've been pretty intentional in moving that forward and getting better. And our passion clubs and our school-wide celebrations and our cyclone celebration and our families and things, there's a lot to celebrate. But really our big picture of that is that inclusive environment. We want to know each other, not just on what letter sounds you know and who you are as a reader and a mathematician, but we also want to know what you're passionate about and what you like and what you're about, and enjoy some time to laugh together as well as learn together, and I think we're getting a little bit closer to that. So we appreciate the opportunity to share this. We could talk all night, but we're going to stop.
Great, thank you. So now we're going to transition into how it looks at the middle school. So Andrew, I'm going to have you introduce yourself and then...
Sounds good. So I'm Andrew Koshatka. I'm the behavior specialist at Ames Middle School. And it was Caitlin, right? Caitlin, are you actually going to tell us the joke about the cow, or you were just leading us on? No, like now that's all I'm thinking about, so I don't know what to say to the rest of you. Ditto, I guess. No, so at Ames Middle School, we started with our desired state. And so our desired state is to have a place that's positive, predictable, consistent, safe, and supportive for students and staff members and anyone who enters our building. And that's where we're trying to get to. We certainly realize that it will take some time. As Jessica pointed out, it's a 3 to 5 year process. But there are some things that we've done and are continuing to do to move us in that direction. So the first thing is focusing on consistency. And that consistency is consistency in language, consistency in expectations, consistency in response to students and student behavior. We also have posters, just like Edwards, across our building in all areas. This particular poster is for any general area in the building. We have posters specific to classrooms, restrooms, cafeteria, and we went through the same training process with our students as well. When we're teaching about the cafeteria, all the 6th graders come to the cafeteria and we teach the expectations in the environment where we expect those to happen. When we talk about the hallway, we take our students out to the hallway and we take them to the poster and we review the poster and then we model teaching that and what that looks like when we're meeting that expectation. The other component that we've added at the middle school is a consistent voice level. So in any classroom in the building, I could walk in and say, okay, right now we need to be at voice level 1, and students understand that voice level 1 is a whisper. And we've taught them those appropriate voice levels. That's super helpful at lunchtime or anytime we're in the auditorium or we're all together in order to help manage that volume. So the other part that we've added that we're excited about is every month we have a focus word. And so we started with the big 3. So the first one started in November and it was thoughtful. And so we provide our staff with a calendar for the month about the word thoughtful, including synonyms, or words that mean the same thing, or antonyms, words that mean something different, as well as definition of what we think thoughtful is. And then we include activities that they can incorporate in their classroom with their homerooms. And then we encourage each homeroom to decorate their homeroom door as a community around that word. So this is for thoughtful. I think there's another set of pictures. And so this is the same thing, a door where the students in this classroom actually scripted out. So they included their learning into that, and they wrote a script for settings where they would be thoughtful. And in here they were focusing on caring. So then they went out and they modeled that and took pictures and include the script when they're decorating the door. So it's more than just telling students to be thoughtful. We're intentionally teaching them, what does it mean to be thoughtful? What does it look like? What does it sound like? What does it feel like when someone is thoughtful to you? Or what does it feel like when you are thoughtful? We also have celebrations, building-wide celebrations. We don't have a ticket acknowledgement system, but we focus on having a ratio of 5-to-1 positive to negative interactions with our students. And so when we do our walkthrough tool, my question to students most recently was, have you received positive feedback from an adult since October or since whenever the last walkthrough was? Our school-wide celebration is what we call In Good Standing, is the name at the middle school. Most recently, that was, and it was the best one yet, we had each grade level in brackets for basketball. And so students could sign up to be basketball players. We had students running the scoreboard. We had students who wanted to cheer. We had students who wanted to sit separately and just watch, but we also included spaces in the building where, while all that was going on, if you just want a quiet room to go to, that's an option as well. Other things we've done for our celebration at the beginning of the year was popsicles in the field. So all the students got to come out to the field and have popsicles and enjoy community time together. And the last day before break, we will be having a movie celebration. And so students will be with their entire grade level watching Elf throughout the building at different times. And so each of our acknowledgements for the building level focuses on bringing all of us together and celebrating the good things that are happening in our building and strengthening the community and relationships that we've started to develop with each other.
Okay, great, thank you. So we felt like this deep dive into PBIS was important because anytime as a district we do talk about student behaviors, it's important to talk about that from a systemic approach first. And so we felt like this PBIS really provides that, and we hope that this information was at least informative or helpful to you. We also want to take a quick opportunity to identify a few actions that just recently have been implemented across the district and some that will soon. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Chad Dumas, who is our Executive Director of Elementary Education, and he's going to talk about some communication protocols that we have recently implemented across the district. And then Dr. Jeff Hawkins, our Executive Director of Secondary Education, is going to talk about a discipline guidance document.
Yeah, so thank you, Eric. As he said, I'm Chad Dumas, Executive Director of Elementary Education. So you've just heard about some of the work at some of our buildings around the PBIS implementation. And as Jessica mentioned, it really is a long-term implementation process that we're seeing throughout the district. Wanted to update you last time at our Listen Learn, I think it was in end of October, that the frequency of room clears in the district has been an issue. And not only the frequency, but then communication home to parents, you that are parents here in this room and other parents not in this room. And so we have put in place some protocols to make sure that the teacher is emailing or most likely emailing home to parents when there is a room clear, so that way you know when one is happening and you're not hearing it from your child about what happened. So that has been put in place just in the last 4 to 6 weeks probably. So just wanted to provide that update since that's been a concern in previous times.
Again, good evening. My name is Jeff Hawkins. I'm the Executive Director of Secondary Education. I will briefly go over the work we've been doing on some discipline guidance. First, I just wanted to say thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to be here tonight. Rumor is there's kind of an important game going on tonight, and the fact that 50 of you are here, invested in what we're doing, is fantastic. I love that. I appreciate it. I also want to take the opportunity, since I do have the mic, to publicly thank our buildings, our students, our teachers, our principals for being here to represent their work. Throughout the conversation tonight, we've heard the word consistent quite a bit, right? And so while there is definitely a desire to have consistency in the way that we roll out expectations, that we teach and reinforce those expectations, there's also a desire systemically to have some consistency within parameters of what the response to behavior expectation not being met looks like. Again, obviously the point of positive behavior and intervention supports is to, again, seek those positives. I really appreciate that about the system. I think it gets easy to have that one thing that happened bad be the thing that drives your thinking or your focus or what happened that day. Sometimes we define our day by what happened that maybe wasn't ideal, and then lose sight of the 30 or 40 things that did happen well. So I appreciate this piece of the system. I kind of think I heard you speak to that a bit, and I like that. But every once in a while, rules do get violated. And the goal of a discipline guidance document that lots of systems use is to try to provide some parameters and range for how do we respond when that rule has been, or that expectation has been violated, so that we don't get into a situation where somebody says, you know what, Jeff, this expectation was violated and I would really appreciate it if you didn't do that again. And then a different somebody says, you know what, Jeff, this rule got violated, and after you come back from 10 days of suspension, I wish you wouldn't do that again. Right? Those are very discrepant ranges of response. And the purpose of a discipline guidance document is just like the consistency on the other end, to bring some consistency in that response piece. All right? So that's really a paraphrase of what you see there. I do want to show you a little bit of a graphic of what that looks like. here's kind of been our steps. So in July, we heard about the work that our teachers did in order to be prepared. We've identified behavior labels and definitions. Again, that consistency of knowing so that something happens. I was a high school principal for a long time. You'd be amazed at the number of ways people could define fight. Right? It looks a lot different to a lot of different people. So actually having some definitions of what we mean when we say words is really important, okay? So we've done some of that work, all right? Just recently in the fall, we've done some examination of how other places use a discipline guidance document. We just put our hands on a few and just kind of explored what are other places doing, all right? Currently, we're in that third box stage. We're drafting, we're discussing, we're revising, and soon, I expect, we'll be finalizing this document with the goal of beginning the use of a systemic discipline guidance document second semester as we begin January. That's the goal, all right? So just as a quick visual, I want to show you, like, what does that mean? What are we talking about? So here, this is one tool that we looked at. This is one tool that we looked at, and we saw some pretty positives in it. I know that it's difficult to read, and the purpose of it isn't necessarily to read each level, but the idea is that each level expresses a range of, okay, so if something would be a level 1 violation of expectations, typically we might respond to a level 1 type of thing by reteaching, or by having a quick reflective conversation, or maybe a restorative circle, right? And as we progress up the stage, you might see that in a level 5 behavior, which of course we all hope that we don't see many level 5 behaviors, that's going to be more significant removal from school. Right? There's a much more lengthy removal of school and lots of process built into that. And then the goal is that with each level, we talk about range of response. So I want to be really clear. A discipline guidance document is not and should not be if then. If this happens, then you do this. And if this happens, then you do this. Right? All behavior has context. What happened? What was the antecedent? What was the intent? What was the context of the situation? What was the context of the kid, right? Those are all things that should be considered when administering a consequence, right? But again, we want to narrow the parameter of that so that we don't see so much discrepancy as what could be possible without any guidance. Right? So that's why lots of systems are moving to a place where there is guidance. Again, I'll show you the next slide. Eric just shows a little bit of what that might look like. So in this situation, if an administrator or a teacher were using this document, they could see that someone who might be trespassing should be handled at a level 2 or a level 3 based upon the context of that situation. So a level 2 might involve some detention, maybe some in-school suspension. A level 3 might start to involve a little bit of out-of-school suspension, all right? Or whatever the system who comes to agreement agrees on what a level 2 and what a level 3 is. That's that discuss, revise, and finalize stage that we're working on right now. But the goal is that someone who, I'm going to stay on that example, someone who's trespassing wouldn't have one response that sounded like, well, let's, don't do that again. Let me teach you why trespassing is not a good idea. And another student who also trespasses in a similar context. I always hesitate as a leader to say same, right? Rarely are things same because there is always context to behavior. But another person does it and they say, that's an 8-day suspension, right? Neither of those things would fit in a 2 or a 3 based on the way the document was rolled out. We're still deciding, what does our 1 look like? What does our 2 look like? What does our, right? We're still making those decisions. We're still deciding, is a trespassing, so this is a document from another system. Is a trespassing a 1 and a 2? A 2 and a 3? A 4 and a 5? So we're still making those decisions. We're close to being at the point where we're going to be ready to use that second semester. But I wanted to update you about what is a document? What's the purpose of it? Where are we at in the stages of development? And why might that help a system bring some consistency without necessarily an if-then scenario? If you would like to know more about that further, I'd be happy to answer those questions when we do our breakout.
Okay, great. Thank you, Chad. Thank you, Jeff. So the next stage of tonight will actually get us moving around, and we've identified 4 breakout areas. And so this will be an opportunity to be able to have small group conversations on specific topics, but also to be able to ask questions to some of our administrators. So Superintendent Risner will be at a station, Dr. Hawkins, Dr. Jones, and Dr. Dumas will each be at a station. And so the way we're going to kind of lay this out is, way I envisioned it at least, was we kind of split the room in half to be able to, choose which one you want. And then I will set a timer once we get situated, and every 10 minutes we'll be able to rotate and choose a different topic. I kind of wanted to reiterate also, while I have this captive audience, because once we break out, we won't have this opportunity. I wanted to thank you all again for coming. The feedback we received from October was to provide a deeper dive into topics, and so we hope we were able to do that. And the next stage we'll be able to ask, you'll be able to ask questions, but please know that tonight shouldn't be the end of the conversation around PBIS and behavior management and what we're doing as a district. If you have further questions, please continue to ask them. This isn't the end of those questions. And so, Jenny, do you want to provide one more thing before we break up?
Yeah. Thank you so much again for coming. And of course, some of you may not want to stay for the breakouts, and that's fine too. But you're always welcome to email questions to us. If there's something tonight that we're not able to answer, we'll get the answer for you and we can email you back. But please know that our intent is to provide information for you and listen to what some of your questions are and get that information out. It might be helpful to just go through what this screen, you can read it pretty good on, but up there it's difficult. Yeah, so at this station, I'll talk a little bit about least restrictive environment. And so students that are on IEPs, the law requires that we provide them a free and appropriate public education in their least restrictive environment. So there's some pretty strict rules around what that is. And so I'll be at that table along with our special education director, Darcy Cousins, and we will provide information there. The other table there is going to be secondary implementation. So what does that look like at middle and high school? What does the PBIS model look like? That table over there, I believe, is Dr. Jones around equity and how that looks with PBIS. We had 2 equity audits done, one on our high school, one on our middle school. So he's kind of using some of that data around discipline and what we saw within that equity audit to lead some discussions around that. And then the final one will be the elementary implementation with Dr. Dumas. And then, like we said, we'll provide a 10-minute
I'll have a timer.
buzzer.
Yep.
And then you can choose another one. And I think we decided on 3 rotations.
Yes, we will do
for the
3.
purpose of, if you're here for elementary, you probably don't want to go to the secondary, but you're definitely welcome to. But we thought 3 would give you, it's really good. So 3 will give you that, what you need. Again, you're always welcome to email and ask questions as well.
Yep.
Thank you again for being here. We appreciate your time. And we'll have another Listen and Learn in January. And that one will be a general listen and learn, not a deep dive. And then we'll follow that in February with a deep dive into another topic.
And because we are breaking up, this is really more, if anyone is watching, we will end the broadcast now because we are breaking up into subgroups at that point. So again, thank you. You are free. We will all break up and get moving around. And I just wanted to thank you again.